evening, everybody. Keith Engle here for TGI Sports Talk with our 2023 Major League Baseball preview show. Last year's show was a great hit, and we hope to have the same kind of reaction here tonight. Welcome, everybody. We'll get to your comments and topics as we go through this 2 hours-ish. We'll review all the divisions, all the teams, some more in-depth than others, I'm sure, because, you know, what's to talk about when it comes to the freaking Colorado Rockies? But we'll talk about more of that. We'll look at some of the either along the way or later after the, the preview. We'll talk about some of the major award winners. We'll probably get into some of that as we go along. Surprises for the year, comeback player possibilities and things of that nature. So bring your comments, bring whatever you got. And with that, let me welcome in my co-host tonight, Mr. Drew Ehrlich. How are you, Drew?
Hey, I am fine. Thanks for having me on again, Keith.
You know, it's great to have you here. It's by popular demand. Rick Sherlock will not let me not have you on to do this show. So
that's because Rick wants to know who we should pick up in fantasy.
He begged me to have this show, before the fantasy draft, but I said, no, we can't.
There you go.
That wouldn't be fair. Then Drew would know who to pick for you better after he does this show. So,
hey, we followed his list. He has a good team.
I'm kicking his ass right now, though. Excuse my French to all the viewers out there. But is ass French? I know the other day you said I wasn't speaking French, but
no, ass is not French. Derriere.
Everything is French to me, I guess, apparently, since
that's Greek.
That's my English is so bad. So anyway, It's great to have you with us. Last year I had a great time. I think you did. The viewers did. It was well received, and we even picked some things on and some things dead wrong. If I remember right, my Brewers winning the World Series
I was a little off.
Might have gone up in flames, not down in flames, but up in flames. I guess eventually you go down in flames as well, but
only if you're in the air.
I mean, we picked some good things well. I mean, I picked the Yankees not to make the World Series and struggle all year. So how they didn't make the World Series. I picked them not to make the playoffs. That's right. Oh well. Yep. So we still haven't come up with one thing I picked right. So anyway, let's do better this year, Drew.
Okay. If we differ, then one of us will. Maybe.
Before we jump in, we'll jump into one of my favorite topics I might be surprising you with this, so that's fine. I mean, one thing I have to say at the top of this show, because I've talked about it a lot. I mean, Major League Baseball needs to get out of its own way and stop with the let's put in the rules to enforce rules that we already have on the books. I mean, pitch clocks, making shifts illegal. Which, by the way, all of these things are trying to be people are finding a way to manipulate already, right?
Of course.
Two outfielders and 5 infielders. There's nothing in the rules to say I can't do that. Nope. So, I mean, can Major League Baseball just stop and let's maybe go back to the way we used to play the game and enforce the rules that are in the book so we can enjoy baseball again?
No, they're not going to do that. This is a modern game, and they're trying to appeal to a different audience than certainly us.
I believe I still have some disposable income available to me, Rob Manfred.
Well, if you're not going to enough games, you're not the audience.
Oh my God! I just don't understand. Anyway.
Yeah, they're going to finagle it. Scherzer's already quick pitching hitters, and they're all playing. So yeah.
Well, how about he did. It's funny you bring up Scherzer and what he did. Did you watch that at bat? I don't remember who he was pitching against in spring training, but the guy, you get one time out, right? That's all you can do to step out of the box.
Yep.
And when the guy did it, Scherzer just stayed there set the entire time. Oh, that's why you're calling it a quick pitch, I suppose, right? Because as soon as he got in the box, he threw the ball.
Yep.
And I thought, I mean, that's brilliant. There's nothing to stop that.
Not a thing against it.
I just don't want. I can't wait till we start having to do replays to see whether the clock started on time or too late or Oh my God.
Well, again, as it happened in spring training, when it affects a game at the end in the 9th inning, it's going to get interesting. But it is what it is. I like the fact that he Manfred made a big deal about saying, "Oh yes, and now we're conversing with the players and see what they think of the rules." And I'm like, now you're doing that?
Yeah, maybe we should have done. Hey, Rob, somebody who knows something about baseball, maybe you should have consulted about this. I don't know. Things
It's
like
a
this,
concept.
it drives me crazy. I mean, to tell me, that I'm a dinosaur, I understand. I'm yelling at kids to get off my lawn right and left, but why
Gran Torino.
can't we just teach people how to play the game right? When I grew up, you hit the ball where they weren't. That's what I was taught to do, not at everybody. If I got 10 guys over here, well, you can't have 10 guys over here. If I got 8 guys over here,
Different sport.
7 or 8 guys over here, how about I hit it over there where there's like 1 or nobody? But we don't teach.
People forget they shifted Ted Williams too.
Probably, yes.
And the guy hit 400. So, I mean, go ahead.
I'd love to watch Tony Gwynn play today and them shift on him because he'd hit about 600 today. They wouldn't shift on him, of course, but,
No, of course. Well,
anyway, welcome, Rick. Great to have you with us. Drew's thanking you for the Garrett Cole pick. I'm sure you're very happy with that. Rick, you're also losing, by the way, at the moment, 8-5. I'll just point that out. If your last chance to go out for the year, who knows? Great audio so far, according to the Perth audio-visual team. I'm sorry, the audio-visual team would be Buck Buchanan and this pocket protector were one of my favorite people in high school, Rick. So Rick always likes me to get a Perth, a little Perth
shot in, yeah.
Shout
out.
CA. CA is one of our great followers on TJ Sport Talk. Great to have you with us. Hopefully, I'm sure CA will have some interesting comments tonight, as he always does. No darts tonight, CA. We gotta stick to baseball. No darts. All right.
Well, there are some teams throwing darts, but that doesn't count.
There is that. All right. Let's dive into this thing we got to do with this thing we call baseball, which everybody started today, correct? Did everybody play today?
I believe so.
Yeah. So
it's not the old Cincinnati Reds on the first day thing.
Another tradition that means nothing to Rob Manfred. I guess he didn't end that. I guess I shouldn't blame him. But they only did it for, 120 years, I guess. So that, there's no precedent.
Consider the oldest team, yeah.
Barely even a precedent. This guy wants to chat with me. I shouldn't have left my work chat open because this guy wants to chat with me. I'm a little busy. Sorry. No.
Priorities.
Oh, God. All right, where do you want to start? Let's start off in the American League, where the defending champion Astros are, but we won't start there. We'll start in the East. A lot of challenges in the East, a lot of interesting movement. The Yankees obviously had to make a big move with Aaron Judge and did so, signed him to a long-term contract, made him the captain. But did they improve enough elsewhere? I said when they signed Carlos Rondon, he was a injury or makeup issue, maybe in New York City. He's already hurt. Severino's already hurt. We didn't fix left field, although Cabrera did start there today. We didn't fix third base. We did bring some infusion of youth in. Volpe. Tell me how to say it again, Drew.
No, you got it right.
Volpe.
You got it right.
I know. After 100 times of getting corrected, I usually do pretty well. He does win the starting shortstop job, and I think this team will benefit from this infusion of youth with him and Cabrera, Peraza. So it's going to be interesting, but I just don't think they've improved enough to get by the Astros in the playoffs, certainly.
Oh, no.
I think and I think it'll be a dogfight with Toronto and the Yankees. We'll see how that goes. But what are your thoughts on the division, the Yankees in general?
Well, there's two things they're doing with Volpe. The first is they're looking for an injection of youth, which worked when Peraza was up earlier, and he hit well in spring training, which ironically you don't think means anything, but that's how he got on the team.
Now I never said spring training didn't mean anything. I said the games don't count. That's all I've ever said.
Oh, no. The games don't count. The performances might, though.
Yes. There's some things to be learned in spring training. Yes. I just said
apparently
WBC than an exhibition game. That's all.
And apparently one of them is we should bring this shortstop in. He's not as good a fielder as Peraza. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I don't have the.
I think there's a chance, depending on what moves get made, that one of them will have to change positions if they're going to keep both kids, which I think they will. One of them's going to have to move, and it's likely to be Volpe because, as you said, Peraza's a better shortstop.
But it depends. I mean, they're playing him in left field now, so if they want to find another place for Peraza, they can. It's not the best alignment, but it's what they've got. They still got LeMahieu. They still got Torres. They can't send someone to second. What are you going to do with them? Until the logjam is broken, that's what they'll probably do.
I'd actually be in favor of trading Torres for a pitcher. I'm sorry, not necessarily a pitcher because he'll just get hurt anyway. A left fielder, a third baseman, maybe. And play Peraza at second base. That's what I would like to do. Then we got DJ to fill in at both, at second base. He can start at third even if we don't get a third baseman. Yep. I think he DH'd today, if I'm not mistaken. He did. Stanton played the field. Judge played center field today.
Oh, okay.
Which is what the Yankees don't want, by the way. And Bader's already hurt. Gosh, I love the kid, but he's hurt all the time.
Yep. Why do you think they traded him?
With that said, I still think the Yankees, with all of those issues, they'll still have a great regular season. They'll find a way. They got enough talent. They're a little brittle, but I mean, some people don't think they're deep enough. I think they're pretty deep myself. Maybe not in starting pitching, but I think they're good in the division.
I don't think they're that deep. I mean, their bench is deep as far as in the major leagues. Kind of Felipe is now playing all over the place. You still got LeMahieu, and Cabrera is available now. So guys can play all over the place, which you want, versatility, and they're not slackers. So it's not like the bench is just literally taking up space. They have a purpose. So they're deep in that regard. I don't think they're deep that as the injuries keep coming, they've got resources to draw on to fill those positions to the same level.
That's possible. That's possible. But again, this division won't be easy. Toronto's, as we said, we've talked about a little bit before the show. I think it's World Series or bust for this team. They may break it up if they don't win. I said that after last year or before last year, I think too. But I think this is it. And they're not going to trade Guerrero or not, but they're going to make a lot of moves if this team and this guy Schneider can't get off the schneid here. I mean, he did a good job during the regular season, but as we know with the Yankees, you've got to win in the postseason. Nobody remembers how you did in the regular season. I think Baltimore will be okay again. I think there's 4 teams with a possibility of getting in the playoffs in this division. I'm not saying they will. We'll talk about that later, but 4 teams with a shot.
Yep. I've got the Yankees actually making the playoffs. I do not have them winning the division. Mainly because you already started it off correctly. Left field, third base, lack of depth. I mean, Clark Schmidt is now one of your starters. This isn't good.
See, I love Clark Schmidt, and I hope he's ready for the big time because I want him to succeed. But I do like his makeup. We'll see how he makes out, though.
And Herman. I mean, it's not good.
Not a fan of Herman. Herman, I do not feel so strongly about now.
So it's those weaknesses that make them vulnerable to not be able to go to the division lead, in my opinion.
And your division winner would be who?
That would be the Blue Jays.
Okay. And
I think
they will beat the Jays out because of
the moves they made. Finally, were really good moves. They were extremely right-handed. They brought in 3 left-handed bats. Their defense in the infield was pretty good. Outfield was god-awful. They took care of that. They gave up some power with Hernandez, but they got it back when they brought on Varsho. So I think those moves were pretty darn good. They strengthened the bullpen, which I already thought was one of the best in the majors anyway, when they picked up Swanson. So, I think overall they're balanced. The defense is improved. They don't have a ton of depth either. So that's a flaw. If someone gets injured, there's going to be a problem. But I think overall right now, with the way the positions are set up, they're in better shape than the Yankees.
The good lineup. I'm they're counting a lot on Brandon Belt, who's, he's a little long in the tooth, but he'll bring some good leadership and experience in his clubhouse. I just think they're going to get off to a slow start. I told you before the show, I know you disagree with me. The first manager fired this year will be Brian Schneider, and one Donnie Baseball will come back and haunt the Yankees all summer long.
No, they just took the interim tag off. They're not going to deep six them that quickly. Maybe by the end of the season, but I don't think they'd do it.
Because I don't think it's, and maybe I'm wrong. The way I understand it, it's not Schneider's decision to put Donnie next to him on the bench.
No, and obviously it's a opportunity if needed, but I still can't see them doing it mid-season. It's possible, but they just took the tag off. I think they're going to give him a leash to a certain extent.
Listen, I remember George Steinberg told Yogi Berra he'd get a full season, and he got 16 games. So guaranteeing him he'd get a full season, he got 16 games. So,
Well, that's because no one played a harmonica.
Oh, get a little. I'm trying to think of the guy. Who's the guy?
Phil Linz.
Phil Linz, thank you. I knew it was Phil. I couldn't come up with the last name. Thank you. Good record. I like that. All right, so anyway, I've got the Yankees winning this division, 92, 94 wins. 94. Let's say 94 wins. Toronto second, low 90s. It'll be a very close race. I got the Royals finish second, or finish third, rather. High 80s. Tampa Bay, low 80s. Fourth, and Boston is going to bottom out. I'm going to tell you will not win 75 games this year.
Okay. I can agree with you on the Red Sox. Don't agree with you on the Orioles and Rays.
Flip-flop them? Or you got the Yankees?
Yeah, I flip-flopped them. No, I got the Blue Jays, the Yankees, and then the Rays. The Rays are obviously hoping that Franco comes back healthy. Brandon Lowe comes back healthy. They don't have a ton of power. They're hoping Siri starts to hit so he can use his speed. Their pitching, they always have pitching. They always find pitching. It could be starters. It could be relievers. It doesn't matter.
Like your starters.
That's what keeps them in games. That is, unfortunately, the big weakness of Baltimore is their pitching is still not there. Both starting and depth in the relief corps, which is better than the starters, but still not as good. Their hitters are fine, although they've still got some holes. You're gonna see a bunch of rookies still come up.
We'll get off the East here in a second, CA.
We will. We'll get into a rhythm. Don't worry about it. But Baltimore's going to bring up a crap ton of rookies. Rodriguez is going to make it back. DL Hall's going to come. Colton Cowser in the outfield. Joey Ortiz. You're going to see a bunch of players come up. We'll get to Atlanta when we get there.
We'll get to that question, Rick. I promise you we'll get to that question.
We will get to that. The Red Sox stink. It's Devers and nobody else. That pitching staff is patchwork. I hope Sale pitches well. That would be a nice comeback. He deserves it. Whether he does it or not is another matter. Keep an eye on Cutter Crawford. He may be decent as a starter. I like him. Not much else to talk about that.
Not decent there. I mean,
Tristan Cassis is the rookie to look at there. He had a good spring. He slammed the way he was supposed to, but he also hit for average, which is not what he usually does. We'll see how he handles it over a season and real MLB pitchers. But keep an eye on that rookie.
All right, so we have the first two teams in swapped out. I've got the Yankees first and Toronto second, and that's it for playoff teams for me from the East. Just the Yankees and the Blue Jays. You'd have the Blue Jays winning. I do not. One comment before I let you go. Tampa Bay, you talked about. I do have them out of the playoffs. Love their pitching. They always find pitching. You said Clanahan will be your American League Cy Young Award winner this year.
Really? That's interesting. I did not have him as a potential Cy Young. I actually have Springs as a potential Cy Young Award winner.
Interesting. There you
go.
go.
From the Rays.
Okay.
So we swapped.
Proves our point.
Actually, all the positions except for the Red Sox.
I guess that proves our point about Tampa Bay pitching, right? We both got a surprise Cy Young Award winner, but different ones. So there you go. Let's move on to the American League Central, where the Cleveland Indians kind of surprised last year, and I don't know.
They're surprised when they changed their name, right?
Sorry. Again, there's $20 more in the jar for me. Redskins, Indians. So if you want political correctness, guys, you're watching the wrong show, and I apologize.
That's the wrong show.
I'm sorry. I would apologize, but I don't want to. So anyway, the Cleveland Guardians came out of not nowhere, but I don't think people really expected them to win this division last year. The Twins, I think, were probably the favorite, and the White Sox with the Tony La Russa, I guess, experiment, which we'll say failed. But this is an interesting division because I don't think anybody views it as strong maybe as they did last year. And maybe the Indians are a prohibitive favorite. And I do like the Indians to win here. They've still got some great young talent. They're just now a year matured, still, and some good leadership to kind of guide them. I love Jose Ramirez. And Terry Francona is the perfect manager for a team like this in my mind. I'm a little surprised he's back. I think he thinks his team might be able to win. Obviously, that might be why he's back. But with the health issues he's had, I think Terry could be walking away at any time. I like Cleveland to repeat here, but Minnesota to push them a little bit more than they did last year. I think Minnesota will be better this year myself. And then the rest, look at Kansas City and Detroit are going to be terrible. And it's a matter of whether the White Sox with some with a new manager can kind of do what the old manager could not do the last couple of years. What are your thoughts on the Central?
Well, I disagree with you on who's going to win.
Oh, good. You got the Twins?
I have the Twins on top. I've got them as the best of the worst, as it were.
Okay.
And it's not necessarily based on a particular thing. It's just a gut feeling that I have. The Indians didn't do much. Zunino and Bell are not the answer. Losing McKenzie was a big hit to their staff because the Indians are based on three things. They're based on speed. They're based on pitching, both bullpen and starters, and they're based on fielding. That's always been their strengths. And, when you pull a pitcher out of here and there's still no power, I mean, that was why people were surprised they won, was because they didn't have the big guns. All they've got is Ramirez, really. So comment, however, Ramirez is healthy. He was playing hurt last year. So he's certainly an MVP candidate if he is indeed healthy.
I think he's one of the most underrated players in the game today. You don't hear about him enough. I mean, maybe it's because he's playing with the team that used to be known as the Indians, but, he just doesn't get talked about enough. He's a great player.
Middle America always has that issue.
Great clutch player, too,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and he's still stealing. And I got to tell you, you look at him and you go, how is this guy stealing bases? When you look at him, he doesn't look like he would be a base stealer.
No, he doesn't.
He's really good at it. His percentages are always good. So he's a pretty much complete hitter and player. He fields well, actually. So he's the package. Unfortunately, he is, for the Guardians, the package. I think Oscar Gonzalez may step up and supply a little bit more of that power and that type of production this year than he has in the past. I think he's a kid who needs to mature, and you may see him break out this year. But
We'll see.
It's possible. I don't think it'll be significant. I think the bigger one is the person they just signed long term, which is Jimenez, Andres Jimenez. They just signed him to a long term contract. There's a good reason for that. People are waiting for the shoe to drop on Rosario. They expect him to be traded, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't do when you want people with speed and all you got is killing worms and pounding the ball into the ground. Then you got to have someone that can take a walk. Rosario still has not learned how to take a walk. So if you can't get on base and you can't move batters along in that regard, he's not what they want in that lineup. So I think you might see him move. Guardians don't have a ton of depth, either on their bench or coming up from the minors at this point. So
and that's something that's kind of universal in the leagues, both leagues. I mean, there are a few teams with some depth, but nobody, right, because of the money they spend on their best players, nobody's going that much quality deep. You talk about lack of depth. Twins don't have much depth either.
They don't.
Is probably already hurt. Probably, I'm sure he's or close to it. Speaking of getting hurt, Buxton.
Yeah, I mean, look, they bring in Farmer, Solano, Michael Taylor on their bench. I mean, what do they have in common? They're all decent fielders.
And if you were putting a AAA team together, that'd be a bunch of good guys to have. But you're not.
They're all good fielders. That's what they have in common.
Yeah.
Polanco's hurt. They brought in Joey Gallo. Again, good fielder.
Yeah. The team will be cool this year, with all the breezes that's going to be blowing there for sure.
The dictionary definition of 3 true outcomes.
Yeah.
They do have a player, I think, although he doesn't steal, so he's not going to be Ramirez in that regard. But the Twins do have a player that can replace Buxton as far as someone to build around, because no one wants to build around a hospital bed, and that is Jose Miranda.
Nice player.
Keep an eye on Jose Miranda. He was injured in spring training a little bit. It was an arm. It wasn't anything. They had him DHing so he could still hit, and he hit. But keep an eye on him. He's a quality bat that I think they're going to end up building around.
Yeah, another guy I like, and the Yankees were chasing much of this year, along with Varsho, who I forgot to mention with the Blue Jays. The Yankees were really chasing him. Great move by them picking him up. But they were chasing around Max Kepler a lot this winter as well, and I think he's a nice player. Not a you're not going to build a team around him, but he's the kind of guy when he's on, and he hasn't had his best years of late. But for them to win, in my mind, they need him to have a good year. They need Polanco to bounce back.
And he's injured.
And he's injured already. But, he's a guy, if he does get healthy, he could be a comeback player of the year candidate, because he's a very, very good player. But, again, not very deep. Carlos Correa is the guy there, obviously. And maybe, your guy will step up there, Miranda. I just don't think there's enough depth, as you said, or enough good quality offense. And the pitching staff scares the crap out of me, too.
Really?
They do. I mean, Pablo Lopez, I love him. And Sonny Gray's pitched well everywhere he's pitched except for New York, obviously. But Joe Ryan's okay. Taylor Mall, he's an innings eater. But again, we talk about that. Is that really good if you're not pitching good? And Medea, who knows?
Well, Maeda is supposedly healthy. They're hoping for a big comeback from him. It's not a sterling 5, but it's a solid 5. I mean, when they had to send Ober down to the minors, and Ober was a fairly good starter, that's depth there. That's where their depth is. It's there. It's in the bullpen. It's a good bullpen. Duran, Jorge Lopez, Griffin Jacks, Caleb Thielbar, Emilio Pagan. Holy crap, that's a decent bullpen.
Yeah, last year when they traded Lopez, he was probably the best at the time. He may have been the best relief pitcher in the American League, but now they've got Duran there in front of them. So,
yeah, he throws heat. We'll see how they work that out. It may be a co-closer situation. Pitching, I think, is solid. They've got depth there. If one of their pitchers goes down, which we all expect to happen, I think that's what gives them the edge over the Guardians for now. I don't know why. I just have a gut feeling there's going to be a letdown in Cleveland. I don't know why, but I don't think they did enough to improve the team.
Yeah, and young teams often can, when they take a step forward, then they take a step back before they actually really get good too. So that could be the case in Cleveland this year. I still like Cleveland to win this. I think the White Sox will finish third. Do you think the White Sox have any shot here with their new manager? What's his last name? I can't say his last name. How would you say that? Grifol?
Yeah. By
the way, they should have given that job to Miguel Cairo, but that's another story, I guess. I think
it's always someone.
But a tough situation last year.
Yep. White Sox actually could be in it. The thing is, they have no more depth. All their depth was in the minors. All those guys are upper traded. They're relying on people like Eloy, and they're relying on people like Robert and Vaughn to replace Abreu. And these are all quality people, but they all get injured, and they keep getting injured. And it was the same with the pitching staff. Giolito gets injured.
Benedetti will fit right in there because he's always hurt too.
And again, they wanted to improve fielding. He's a good fielder. He's not a slugger. They don't need sluggers. They got a bunch of sluggers already. So he fits in that regard. Although they're bringing up a rookie for the other corner, Oscar Colas. So they got possibilities. If they all stayed healthy and Hendricks comes back healthy, which God bless him, I hope he does, then they actually have a shot. This isn't a strong division. So they do have a shot, but I don't expect them to stay healthy enough to pull it off.
If Bob Noto's watching, the Yankees could use him probably in the field as well. Bobby's a first baseman, so we can't. Maybe we'll move Rizzo to third base. I don't know. If you're watching, welcome to the show. Sometimes I can't see the people who are on YouTube or whatnot. So anyway, welcome if you're here. Listen, with the White Sox, though, I mean, listen, two of the best starters in the division are Lynn and Cease. Cease is going to be a Cy Young candidate this year, as he always is. Lance Lynn pitched, another guy, by the way, who pitches well everywhere but New York. So I don't get it. And by the way, is Lance Lynn on my diet? Did you see him during a WBC? He looks like me in a baseball uniform, for crying out loud.
As long as he can throw those fastballs, he's fine.
Pretty well. I mean, pretty well. And if they get a bounce back from Giolito, then I think this team can potentially surprise us. But as you said, just too many question marks and fillers like Elvis Andrus in the infield. I mean, he had a decent year. He probably went 15-15 last year, right? Probably could do the same this year, but you're not winning baseball games like that anymore.
And that shows you the lack of depth, that they had no one at second base to take the place. That's been a revolving door for them the last 3 years now. Pitching, you're looking for Kopech to still be healthy, and he hasn't been. That's the biggest issue, is health with these guys. It's always health. Clevenger, okay, really?
He's got a lot of issues going on besides just health.
Yeah, we know. But he's there too, and he's their fifth. So could they take the division? Yes. Is it going to happen? No, because they need everything to go right, and already it hasn't. So the bullpen's not as strong as it used to be. Crochet is still hurt, so that took a big arm out of their bullpen. They're not as complete as the other two.
I think they're going to miss Abreu. I really do. I think that this team may be in contention and wish they had Abreu's bat at crunch time when the season hits that point. So.
Yep. Royals, do you want to talk about the last two?
If we have to, yes, I suppose. There could be a Royals or Tigers fan watching. Why you are Royal such, I don't know, but go ahead.
I've got the Royals next. I got the Tigers in last.
I would agree.
The interesting thing about the Royals is if all you looked at was position players, you would say this team could easily contend. And they're doing it all with young guys. They've got a rookie in Massey playing second who hits. Pasquantino, the guy's got a baseball IQ that belies his years. He takes walks. He hits to the opposite field. The guy has power. He's a fabulous fielder. He's just, and he's a kid. Melendez, the backup catcher, they got playing outfield, one of the corners right now. And you still got Salvador Perez to tie it all together.
One of the best catchers in the baseball for sure.
And Witt. We didn't even discuss Witt.
Who, by the way, got off to a tough start last year, and they stuck with him, and he battled through, and he ended up having a pretty good year. And I would expect him to take a big step forward this year.
If he gets a little more patient, he in the minors he would take a walk. In the majors, he didn't do that, which is extremely typical of rookies. If he can do that, yeah, he can take a huge step forward. Lance,
yeah, overall, Lance Lynn has had a pretty decent career, CA. But this time with the Yankees, he didn't pitch any good games.
No, but look how old he is, and people still want him. So there's got to be some value there.
Good point.
So the Royals actually, again, if you look at that, they're a good team.
Yeah.
And then you go to the pitching, and it's a cesspool. Brady Singer is decent. Scott Barlow is decent as their closer, and in between, it's not good.
Very good chance those two guys are both pitching for different teams come July, I would think.
They need improvements in those areas. I looked at their minors. That's not where the help is. It's not good. If the pitching could match the hitting, these guys would easily be a contender for the division.
Speaking of their pitching, before we move on, does Zach Greinke really care about finishing his career where he started that much? Or if not, because he can still pitch a little bit. He can't pitch, deep into games, obviously. But he'd be valuable for a contender potentially in August and September. I don't think he's on this team by the time the season's done.
They don't need him to be. There was a question of whether he was even coming back.
What's the point? That for them to have,
He's been what we'll call a finesse pitcher for a number of years now, but he gets away with it. Power to him. But I think it says more about KC's pitching staff than it does about Greinke.
Well, that's a good point.
And the Tigers,
we should. Somebody brought this up to me. I mean, we need to do like the Premier Soccer leagues do. We need to relegate teams. After
send them to the minors. Yeah.
If you just don't even try for X amount of time, you've got to be relegated.
Well, they're trying. I mean, Torkelson and Green were supposed to be star rookies last year, and one stunk and the other got injured.
Yeah.
What are you going to do there? Their bench stinks. That's all they've got. In action, their bullpen stinks. They don't even have a closer because they traded Soto away and he wasn't any good. They're looking for bounce backs from their starters, and it's an interesting staff. If the starters actually bounced back, they'd be good. Just the starters, not the team. Matthew Boyd was good at one point. Matt Manning is supposed to have all kinds of potential. Turnbull had all kinds of. I mean, they're not bad arms when they're healthy and can locate their pitches. Rodriguez will never be good. I don't know why they brought him in as a free agent. He's stuck with the Red Sox, so I don't know why he's there. But
he's listed as your number one pitcher. I was doing kind of going through the teams, looking at the best staffs in baseball, and obviously when you're doing that you find the worst ones as well, and I'm thinking, Eduardo Rodriguez, number one pitcher. Don't need to look any further than that.
No, actually they've got better pitchers if they come back. I mean, their entire staff is a comeback player of the year option. We'll see what happens. But they're bad.
And to me, it's a shame Miguel Cabrera, speaking of great players, we talked about finish his career out with this awful team for I don't know, they've been bad for. I mean, they had a little run in AJ Hinch's first year, but since then they've been just atrocious.
Yeah.
And I hate to see him have to go out with his team, and this is probably his last year.
Oh yeah.
And it's a shame.
Yep. But he's going to do the tour, and that'll be a good thing. So
I got that team winning about 60 games, by the way. That's it.
that much?
Yeah, I got him. I put him to 60. I was going to put him in the 50s, them in the 80s, but I gave him 60 because I want him to go Cabrera not to be on one of the worst teams ever.
I'm giving him 58, but okay.
That's
All right.
The AL West, where there's actually some good teams to talk about. And I wish I don't see Alan Perales with us. I wish he was, because I'm not going to talk nice about your team tonight. I can tell you right now. The Astros, back-to-back is very hard to do. This is a team that has a really good chance to do it. But I think they're going to get pushed in the division by the Mariners this year. Mariners, much better. Picking up Teoscar Hernandez is a great move for this team. I think some of their other young bats will step up a little bit. I think J-Rod might end up being an MVP contender before it's all over this year. And, the Angels will be better, but not good enough still. I don't think there's still enough pitching there outside of Ohtani. And Ohtani's a great player, and I don't think Neil's with us tonight. Neil likes to really rip Ohtani as an ESPN creation. Neil, I hate to tell you this, he's a great player. He's a great player. Did he deserve to be the AL MVP last year? No, we all agreed on that. But don't be shocked when he's winning it this year, because this guy does everything literally everything that best player since Babe Ruth, as far as being able to play every position, not every position, but you know what I mean, both sides of the ball.
Yep.
He's fun to watch. I can't rip the guy. He's a great player. But they don't have enough around him. Him and Trout, two great players who may never make the playoffs in their careers. I don't know.
Yep.
Give me some thoughts on this division before I.
Well, I got Houston first. I mean, you have to. I mean, the Mariners have made some great moves. They are going to push them. Houston doesn't have as much depth as they used to. They've called up a bunch of people from the minors, so Hunter Brown is their big rookie for this year, and Yanner Diaz, who's going to back up at catcher.
Mm-hmm.
Keep an eye on Diaz, because Maldonado is not the answer, and
No.
this kid can hit. I don't know if he can catch. That's half the problem. But Abreu was a good move instead of Gurriel. Brantley's Brantley. Bregman is okay. Losing Altuve is where they can get hurt. They've got really nobody to plug in there, and that's a problem. Great fielding team. They rely on that. Their starters are cream of the crop. I mean, what a starting five. And that's with McCullers down. Holy crap.
We talked about the Rays, rather, coming up with pitchers year after year after year. So does this team. These are guys that they're trading for. These guys are coming up through and every one of them throws smoke.
Yep.
They got great poise. I just love this team. I mean, it again, I know people don't like the Astros because we're not supposed to like them because they stole our signs. Get over it already, Brian Cashman. But if McCullers is healthy, this is the best pitching staff in baseball.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
And their bullpen. Holy crap.
Yeah.
I mean, what do they got? Presley, Montero, Neris, Stanek, and Abreu now. You're like, jeez.
Good. How Met fans must feel about Rafael Montero actually now being a productive major league player.
Well, he wasn't supposed to be a reliever, and that happens a lot with these pitchers that start as starters, can't seem to find the control, get knocked around the second or third time through the lineup. Stick them in a bullpen and let them just throw, and holy crap, some of these guys blossom. Mariners are going to be on their butt, though. J-Rod certainly is a candidate. By the way, I think Tucker is a candidate as well for MVP.
Another guy who's very underrated, a good fielder, clutch hitter, maybe could hit for a little better average, but a really, really good player, and I like him a lot myself.
Steals. He's a package. getting back to the Astros for a split second, Alvarez, this hand thing scares the crap out of me. He had a problem with it last year, still hit, still homered. Same problem again in spring training. That scares me a little bit for Alvarez. But back to the Mariners. Hernandez, J-Rod, Suarez, Raleigh. Power is not a problem. Their bench, Tom Murphy, A.J. Pollock, Sam Haggerty. He's not a kid, but people will think he's a kid because they never heard of him. Cooper Hummel, who can slam the ball, is a third catcher or outfielder. It's a good bench.
Ty France has become a reliable major league player too, and it took him a little while to get there, but
yeah, he's kind of a Mark Grace type. He's not a huge power guy for first base, which is unusual, but he fields. He's versatile. Takes a walk. He's good in that regard. It's watch out for Jared Kelenic. He may finally have put it together. You can't go by spring training stats, obviously, but he really looks like the issue with him was his head. He'd light it up in the minors, and then he'd be a head case when he got to the MLB. And he seems to, from all the interviews and articles I've read, he seems to have managed to get the mental part down a little bit, and I think it showed this spring. If he is actually going to meet the potential people thought he had, this team is scary. The starting pitcher, we didn't even hit that with Castillo, Ray,
really
Gilbert, Kirby, Gonzalez is their number 5, and Flexen couldn't even make the rotation.
Two of the best young pitchers in baseball, and Kirby and Gilbert. These guys both have potential to be future Cy Young Award winners. I like them a lot. Marco Gonzalez has progressed from where he was a few years ago.
And he's 5. He's number 5.
And Robbie Ray didn't have a great year last year after winning the Cy Young Award 2 years ago, but he could bounce back, and this team would be, as you said, really scary if they click on all cylinders and a couple of the kids step forward a little bit more. J.B. Crawford improves a little more on offense. Hernandez gives you what you think. I like the addition of A.J. Pollock to this locker room too. I mean, he's not the player that he once was. Yeah. But he's a veteran presence, and a team like this really can make use of. And again, depth could be an issue, but it's everywhere. But the starting pitching is just really they rival the Astros for sure.
Yes,
with the starting 5
definitely do. Angels, they're relying on Rendon to come back healthy again.
Comeback player of the year in American League, Anthony Rendon.
Could be if he's healthy. That's the big question. Ward looks legit. Taylor Ward looks legit. Walsh is injured yet again with headaches. Who did they bring up? They got Rengifo, they've got Drury, they got Urshela, they got Renfroe. It's a supporting cast. It's not a great supporting cast. It's not a tremendously great fielding team. They brought in Brett Phillips because he's fast and he fields, but he's never found a pitch he could hit. The starters, they did a better job with their starters this year, which really isn't saying a hell of a lot. But Sandoval looked legit. Ohtani, I think, is actually a Cy Young. I think he actually has a better shot at the Cy Young than he does. Yeah. Because of his average. His average isn't always that great when he hits. He takes pitches, he steals, he does everything, but his average is usually 260 or so. But his pitching is sterling. His issue there is he doesn't pitch enough innings because of the 6-man rotation. Tyler Anderson could be decent. Reed Detmers could be decent. It's not going to scare anybody, but it's a hell of a lot better than it used to be. We'll put it that way, everything being relative.
Listen,
the bullpen.
I know. How are they going to replace Andrew Heaney, really, when you think about it? Just that's a sarcastic remark, by the way, because the Rangers think they're going to be better with Andrew Heaney.
Yeah, I know. The bullpen, that's their biggest weakness here. The bullpen it's a cesspool. They don't even know who their starter is going to be. They're relying on Loop and Tapera and Herget. And they brought in a guy to be their closer, and he sucked all spring training. So now he's not going to be there. It's not good. They do have a rookie to keep an eye on, and that is Logan O'Hop. Their starting catcher, courtesy of Stassi being injured. This kid can hit, and supposedly he's a decent catcher. So that could be someone to keep an eye on for rookie.
I think this team's a distant third, though, in this division. As you said, just not enough. Trout's got to stay healthy. Listen, the guy played 119 games last year, hit 40 home runs. He could be the comeback player of the year. If he just plays 145 games, he might break the American League home run record, for crying out loud.
Oh yeah, on home runs per at bat. I mean, he's nobody can touch him, but he's got to get the at bats.
He can't stay healthy. I said this a couple times on my show. Mike Trout really enjoyed his time playing in the World Baseball Classic, and he said more than once, pretty much every day, the most fun I ever had playing baseball. And I don't know if that's really a positive for the World Baseball Classic or just commentary on how bad the Angels have been. So
I think it's both.
And Gio Urshela is playing out of position at shortstop. I don't think this is going to work out well. I mean, he can play the position, but to play there for a full season is something different as well, and it's not going to help his offense rebound.
No. I mean, they want versatility. They have it. That's not the same thing as saying that they're good fielders and can play the position well.
Right.
It just means you can plug them in there, and maybe their bat will compensate, but maybe not.
Well, we have to talk about the Rangers because Ranger fans think they're going to the World Series this year because they've got DeGrom to pitch 12 games for them this year.
I'm sorry, Alan's not here.
I wish he was. Well, Alan's already heard it from me 100 times. I mean, I keep hearing how Andrew Haney's such a great pickup. Has he won 10 games ever in his career? I don't know that he has.
I'm not sure. If it is, it's not by much.
Last year was his best year in the majors, and he won about 4 games and had a good ERA, and that's it. I mean,
well, he got injured again.
He'll get hurt. Martin Perez, great year last year. He's 31 years old. What's the chances he's going to repeat that? It's not great. Maybe he will. Evaldi, and then DeGrom's, this team was 30 games out of first place this year. At best, he's got to pitch. If he doesn't pitch 30 games, they're not going to make up 30 games. And their offense is no good. They got a couple of good players. This is the worst on-base percentage and average team in baseball last year by far. I mean, by far, but, everybody was down. But this team was just god-awful. And I don't see how they're that much better offensively than they were.
Well, it depends where you're looking. Infield-wise, this is a pretty solid team. They all hit. They all field.
I like Jung a little bit too.
I mean, Josh Young is a possible Rookie of the Year candidate.
Yeah.
He seemed to finally get it a little bit towards the end. Semien, of course, quality player, steals, hits, fields. I actually expect Corey Seager to be MVP material. Every stat.
Do you think this team finishes over 500? I got them winning.
If they are, it's not by much.
I got them winning 78 games this year, and that you can't be MVP on a team that wins 78 games.
Here's the thing: we don't know if DeGrom and Heaney and Eovaldi and Gray and Perez stay healthy. They could easily be over 500. Do I expect that? No, right. But it's in the realm of possibility, and that infield is sick. Their outfield, except for Dallas Garcia, another one who can't take a walk, is a mess. They have nobody else. I mean, in the outfield,
his on base percentage was atrocious. Again, he's one of the worst defenders on that team. And I hear all this about Jonah Heim too. And you know what? He might be a decent catcher at some point. He's not one of the better catchers in baseball. I'm sorry. Don't try to sell me on that. He's got a little pop, but other than that, this guy is not going to be a top run catcher.
they actually had a catcher, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head. They were going to bring him up. He was a rookie. He got injured, and now they're going with Heim and Garver again for the purpose of socking.
Mhm.
But they're not good catchers, which doesn't help the staff any either.
Their best catcher's in New York right now. So
I don't know about that. I think it might be in Baltimore.
maybe,
Um,
maybe. Okay.
but
Yeah.
again, if the starter stayed healthy, if they could find an outfielder, I think you're gonna see besides Josh Young, you're gonna see Owen White, who's their number 3. He's a pitching prospect. I think you're gonna see him come up, and he's gonna be good. Otherwise, this team is in trouble.
Yeah, Robbie Grossman's had,
He's streaky as hell.
Maybe he's a gamer and he plays the game hard, CA. But this, you know what? You're not winning a lot of games with a lot of Robbie Grossmans. One wild card on this team that it definitely will help. Bruce Bochy's one of the best managers in the history of baseball.
Agreed.
So,
but you still have to have the clay to mold.
Agreed. And look, he won with some interesting Giant teams that weren't the most talented teams in the world. Great pitching staffs. That was what they had. And I don't see that here, right? He doesn't have those pitchers in San Francisco.
Again, in theory, he does, but he doesn't. They'll all get injured at some point.
They probably will. I mean, I think this team keeps reaching. They weren't ready to sign 2 guys like Simeon and Seager last year, and they weren't in a position to sign for too much money in too many years. Jacob deGrom, you're not ready to win. If he was going to put you over the top, and you want to take that chance, I get it. But,
if he's the missing link, you're
not making up 30 games in the standings with Jacob deGrom and pretty much the same kind of offense you had last year, in my mind.
Yep.
So, and then
do we want to talk about Oakland at all?
In the league, speaking of
send them to the minors.
Yeah, good grief. I mean, I guess we have to talk about them because they are in the league.
They are in the league, barely.
Well, at Oakland, which they may not be much longer, but
they're going to move to Vegas. They're going to join the Raiders. Seth Brown and who the hell else? I want to run 3 names by you as an indication.
Okay.
Juriz Familia, Trevor May, and Domingo Acevedo. This is their bullpen.
Yeah.
OMG. That's all you need to know.
This team might lose 120 games.
They could. Could. They do have some rookies to keep an eye on. Kyle Muller is their number 5. Ken Waldachuk is their number 2. Both of those guys are up and starting. They got possibly the fastest person, even faster than Carroll, in their outfield. Their number 6 rookie is Estuary Ruiz. We don't know if he can hit, but he can run like the wind. Jordan Diaz is another one of theirs, but the one to keep an eye on, if they bring him up, and this would be a ballsy move, but if they did, Tyler Soderstrom, their number 1, he can play catcher, he can play first base. He'd be a hell of a talent if they brought him up. I just don't know if they're ready to do that and play the time game with the contracts, but that would be a rookie.
It's a team that's going to play those types of games, as we know. And anybody who's any good here right now will probably get traded if they better not play well, or they won't be here. So, or maybe maybe that's what they want anyway. So.
Oh yeah, well they got leashes on these kids. They're all young and they're all under contract, so they got lots of time.
Yeah, true. All right, well now we can move on to the senior circuit, and we'll start in the American League, the National League East, which would seem to be really loaded at the top, similar to the AL East. The Mets, even though they lost Diaz for the year, I know Verlander's already hurt. I think their two pitchers are total almost 80 years old between the two of them. Couple of still, I think, issues in the lineup, especially at DH. But them and the Braves are the best two teams in this division, I think. The Phillies are going to take a step back, I think. Harper's isn't going to be back. Well, there's some talk he'll be back sooner than the All-Star break. They think, he's Superman. He'll be back by May, but he's not going to play in the field when he does.
Not at first, no.
Likely. So the team is. I think it's worse after their first two pitchers. I think they're a little short, especially when you compare them to the Braves. The lineup is okay. Hoskins being out doesn't help them, obviously. The defense is not a whole lot better. It'll be better with March playing a full season in center field, but I think this is the Braves and Mets again. 100 wins apiece.
Yeah. Actually, I'm going to disagree with you on the number. It's the Braves and the Mets in that order. I don't think it's going to be as close as you think. The Braves are stacked. Seems like they're always stacked. They got pitchers coming out of their ears. Wait till I talk about their two rookies that they just inserted into the starting rotation just because Wright is gone. Wright is hurt, and they can fill it with two more guys, and you're like, holy crap.
21 games last year? Didn't he win 21 games last year?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they could just that like crazy. I love Spencer Strider, too. I think he is the NL Cy Young Award winner this year, by the way. And Fried went out hurt today, too, I believe. So he's another guy.
Yeah, he's on my fantasy team.
They've got pitchers, as you said. They've got guys that can kind of plug in here, and they've got a good bullpen, too. So look at this.
They have one of the best bullpens in the majors. They got one of the best starting staffs in the majors. Yeah, they're still relying on Rosario and Osuna, which scares the crap out of me a little bit.
Osuna does. He's the one weak. He's the weakest link in his lineup, both physically and mentally.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you on that. But when your core is Acuna, Riley, Olsen, Harris, Murphy, Darno, one of the best tandems. Probably just as good as Toronto's tandem at catcher. Orlando Arcia at short, that's probably not going to end up being able to be maintained. But it's a hell of a team.
Were you surprised that Grissom's not the shortstop?
Yes and no. He doesn't fit what they want totally. He's still not taking pitches. So they need him to be a little more disciplined. And people forget how young he actually was. And he did well, but he also wasn't playing short. So I think it came down to we want to protect our pitchers and have a better fielder at short than worry about what the bat can do.
And with the rest of that lineup, you can get away with Glove at shortstop.
You can, and he'll be up. I don't think there's any intention to leave him down there all year, but he does need to improve a bit. I mean, and the bullpen, holy crap! Minter, Jimenez, McHugh, Dylan Lee, Yates could be a comeback player of the year. Nick Anderson could be a comeback player of the year.
Yeah, Yates is an interesting guy in that bullpen to watch out for if there's some injuries and he gets some high leverage chances.
Yep, Nick Anderson from the Rays, Ludic, who pitched well for the Yankees, he's there. I mean, and this doesn't include Iglesias and Matzek, who are both injured.
Right.
You're like, okay. Their bench is weak. That's probably their only flaw.
We've been through about 13 or 14 teams now, and that seems to be a universal thought, as I said at the top. So
it is in most cases. I can't see anyone overtaking these unless again there's some more major injuries. Losing Fried isn't going to help. It's not going to be long term though. It's a hamstring. So
if there's one thing that this worries me a little about this team. But again, there are some guys that can step up into this. Back-to-back years, they lose Freddie Freeman and Dansby Swanson, who are really not just good ball players, but good clubhouse guys and leaders on that team. And you never know how teams are going to react to that type of thing. They reacted okay last year to Freddie going away, which I still think is a shame. Matt Olson's a nice player, but he's not Freddie Freeman. He might be stat-wise or can be, but he's not the type of leader that Freddie Freeman is on a team.
Well, we don't know that. He's still relatively young. The beauty of what they've done is that they've signed all these guys to long-term contracts. So Riley's going to be around a while. Olson's going to be around a while. Those guys can grow into the leadership positions without an issue. Acuna, obviously. Harris.
Riley's a guy that may step up into that situation.
Easily. So, and they're all signed to long-term contracts. So, yeah, you lose those guys, but they brought in Olson immediately. They didn't do that at short, so we'll see how that works out. But they've always managed to handle it, and that doesn't worry that much. The Mets, they're still Escobar is still on third. Brett.
For now,
Batty is up.
Batty's probably going to be I think he's going to be a factor before this year's out.
Oh, no question. He'll be up. All three of those guys will be up. Vientos will be up. Alvarez will be up. When, in what types of positions? Is it going to be because of an injury? Yeah, who knows? They will all be up. They've all already been up. So it doesn't hurt anything. They've all got options. So they'll be up, but I don't think they're going to be playing, anytime soon. The hitters are good.
This is that I do like their bench a little bit. They got some guys like Guillaume.
Guillaume, yeah. And
LaCastro's a nice guy to have on the bench. Tommy Pham is going to probably be the right-handed DH and come off the bench, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So there's some guys to like. And I think he's going to start. But I think he got a better bench than some of the ones that we've talked about for sure. And they've got some flexibility because you got guys like McNeil and Escobar who can play around the field a little bit. So can LaCastro, I guess, at play every position in the outfield. Guillaume can do that same thing. So
correct.
The bullpen is going to have to replace the best closer in baseball last year. And they were a little weak outside of him, I thought, last year anyway.
Ottavino, for the first time ever, learned that you can actually throw a pitch over the plate and be successful. He couldn't do it with the Yankees. But somehow he found the plate and he stopped.
I feel like
Go ahead.
Pitcher. I can find a good pitcher on every single team in the major leagues that stunk with the Yankees. I'm almost positive.
Well, someone got through to him because that was always his big issue, was his control or lack thereof. Braves are definitely similar to the Astros.
I agree with that. They're definitely got a great staff.
And the Mariners. I'd put the Mariners in there as well.
Those three, I would say have the best staffs, starting staffs, and then the relief corps to complement them probably in baseball.
And bullpens.
Yeah, that's right.
Robertson will probably be sufficient. Ottavino looks good. Now, Drew Smith, no one knows about him, but he was really good.
Mm-hmm.
They got really smart, and Brooks Raley, I think, was a hell of a pickup. He was a really good pitcher, and I think they're going to end up relying on him possibly even to close during the year. So that was good. Quintana's gone for half the season.
We'll talk about the Padres here in a little bit. CA, go ahead, Drew.
Yeah, there's a couple of holes, and the injuries are killers, and this still doesn't deal with Scherzer's and Verlander's ages. Carrasco, we have no idea what they have in Senga, actually.
No, that's a total mystery there. I mean, he could be good or he could be just,
pitchers coming over,
You know what I see from this kid so far? This kid, I don't know if he's even a kid, to be honest with you. But you remember they had a picture years ago from Japan. Yoshida, was it Yoshida? Something like that.
Yeah.
Who was okay, right? But he was never anything great. And I kind of have that sense that he's going to be that kind of pitcher.
Yeah.
But
hopefully not an Arabu.
No, right? No, fat toad, right? You don't want him. He's no longer with us. We're sorry about that. Go of the dead. But to me is a guy with potential to step up here. He's a good story, overcoming cancer a couple of times. I think at least one. I think it might have had 2 bouts. I'm not sure, but when healthy, this guy has as much talent as almost anybody in the league. He's just got to put it all together, and he had some good stretches last year.
Yeah, but he's also 36. So here we are again.
So it's hard to believe. I remember when he was 19, and it seems, and every team in the league was after him. So it's hard to believe he's 36 years old now.
Yeah, he was great on the Indians, and they were the Indians. But it's scary. They're not on as stable ground as they were last year. I don't think they're gonna. Maybe low 90s. I think as far as wins go, depends on what the kids do when they come up, but they're not in the Braves league.
I'm going to say that the veteran pitchers stay healthy enough, and the lineup is good enough, and it's got to stay healthy. Lonzo's got to have a big year because he's the one, big bat. I mean, as far as home runs and whatnot go.
And Lindor.
He stays close. I think the Braves win 102 and the Mets push 100 and finish 3-4 games behind them, and they both think the Phillies are an interesting situation. A lot of people still think they're World Series contenders. I don't see it anywhere. I mean, they got some good players. I'm not saying they don't, but Rob Thompson, I was glad to see Rob Thompson get his chance last year. I talked a lot about it. He's a baseball lifer, never got a chance. I wanted the Yankees to hire him when they hired Aaron Boone, and they barely gave him an interview, barely gave him minutes. And he showed last year he was the perfect antidote to Joe Girardi's, keeping such a tight grip on a club that they can't breathe. And I'd like to see him succeed, but this team just feels worse. When you're big pickup for the offseason, obviously their big pickup. I'm sorry, I was going to say it was Walker, but obviously it's Trey Turner, who's a great player. But Philadelphia is a little tough. People talk about New York. Philadelphia is a tough place to play too.
It's a very tough place.
He better not get off to a slow start. He'll help the defense, I think, obviously. But they're gonna not having Harper in that outfield. He's underrated for his defense. I think he's a great player. They're going to miss him the first half of the season too much. Craig Kimbrell is your closer. I mean, he's just as likely to have an ERA of about 7 as he is to go out and save 40 games, for crying out loud. You never know what you're going to get out of that guy. And they're starters after the first 2. Wheeler and Nola are really good. Nola's had a bit of a tough spring, I think, but I'm sure he's going to overcome that. But after that, it's pretty shaky, man. Bailey Falter's your 5th starter. Falter, not a good baseball name, Falter. I can just saying. And Taijuan Walker is going to give you a pretty good first half and then disappear.
I don't think he'll even do that. It's this team is hurt in a lot of ways, both physically and other ways. Obviously, the Harper issue. Obviously, the Hoskins issue. Real Muto, great player. I actually have Trey Turner as an MVP candidate. Schwarber is supposed to be one of those, along with Corey Seager, who really benefit from killing the shift. Both of those players are supposed to have much better success with their batting average. It doesn't affect their power, obviously, but their batting averages could easily shoot up. Sager into the 300s, and if you're lucky with Schwarber, 260s.
I'll add an editorial comment here. Artificially, they'll raise their batting average. Thank you, Rob Manfred.
It all looks the same in the record books.
I get it. I understand.
Marsh, Bohm, and Stott. That's the rest of their team. It's okay. None of them have power. Decent fielders. Yeah, Castellanos. A lot is hinging on him, and I'm still not seeing him bouncing back. He said the right things, but I'm not seeing. He didn't show it in spring training. He's still not looking good.
He was a man without a position until Hoskins got hurt, and again, another team with a very weak bench, and
Oh yeah.
when your lineup is as thin as this one, you've got some guys who are injury risk in Marsh, who's had some injuries. Kyle Schwarber's had some injuries. You're going to need guys to play, and I just don't know who's going to fill in when these guys aren't playing. So,
well, did you see they just picked up Christian Page?
I did.
Woo-wee. Well, there's your defense.
You can't play much defense from the bench, though. I mean,
late inning. And let's not forget Andrew Painter got hurt. Their number one prospect, who they were considering for the rotation. So he's hurt too. And you're like,
he would have made the rotation if he didn't get hurt. I really do.
He would have.
If not now, then a month from now. But that's going to hurt them a lot too. I see this team's going to. I see this team finishing around 500,
slightly above. But yeah, it's not going to be good.
Yeah,
it's not going to be good. It's not a big three. It's a big one and a really good two, and I don't know about a third.
Exactly. That's the problem. They are better than the Marlins and the Nationals, though. We can give them that.
They are.
The battle for fourth place in this. Yeah, I think that the Nationals might be better than 110 losses, which is I guess setting the bar kind of low. But the Marlins just never seem to get any better offensively. And they got some really good pitchers, obviously, and Alcantara, who I know I say his name wrong all the time. Luzardo, I think, is going to step up nicely this year.
I actually have him, believe it or not, as a Cy Young candidate.
I get it. And Trevor Rogers, I've got as comeback player of the year in the National League. So they've got some really good pitchers. Johnny Cueto, maybe he's got a little bit of life left in his arm. But who the heck's where are the runs going to come from? I mean,
apparently only center field.
Yeah.
It's Jazz.
Who's going to drive in, though? I mean, good grief. I mean,
it's got to be home runs. They have a player on here I've always liked, and even in fantasy season, I always end up picking him up at some time, and that's Garrett Cooper. He's going to be their starter at first base now. He'll be injured by May. But and that's his problem. If he played over a full season, you see his numbers are really good. But he just can't stay healthy. But if anyone drives in Chisholm, that'll be who it is. Otherwise, they got nothing. John Birdie, if you can get him on into the lineup and he'll steal something for you. Okay.
And they got a couple of guys who are on the backside of their career in Solar and in Segura. So they're not, this team. I think they may finish behind the Nationals, which is going to be very hard to do.
I think that's very hard to do, but mainly because the pitchers will keep them in. Their bullpen isn't good, which is you'd think that would follow the starters. Maybe your starters aren't any good. Move them to the bullpen; they become great. No, Their bullpen stinks. Max Myers got TJ surgery, so their number 3 rookie isn't going to be up. It's not good. It's not good, but I think it's still better than the Nationals.
Well, let's look at the Nationals because there ain't much to look at. I get it. Victor Robles is a nice player. He might be a trade bait by the All-Star break as well. He's a decent, never matched his potential. Dominic Smith is going to get a chance to play every day. That'll be an interesting thing to watch.
Yeah. He's going to bounce back. I think he's actually legit at a certain level. He'll be good.
And C.J. Abrams is another guy that probably the centerpiece, I would say, of the Soto trade is a really good defensive shortstop, and I think he will come along offensively. If it's not this year, it will be before long. I think he's going to be a really good player in this league for a long time.
And actually, Garcia, their second baseman, is a young kid, and he's got all kinds of potential. Mm-hmm. And let's not forget Ruiz, who they just signed for a long time to build the team around at catcher.
Yeah, he's a really good catching prospect for sure. But again, who's going to, in this case, we just talked about a team that where the run's going to come from. I mean, who's going to throw the strikes in this? I mean, Patrick Corbin would have lost 20 games probably if he pitched enough games last year, which is very hard to do these days. He's your number 2 starter. And Strasburg's career might be over. I don't know. He had that what do you call the thoracic
outlet syndrome?
Yeah, with the same thing that Matt Harvey had, and we saw what happened to his career. I think we may have seen the last of Steven Strasburg, and such a waste of it. He had some good years, but spurts. But he really never became what he could have become.
A huge amount of money outlaid on him twice that he didn't work out.
Yeah. They were so worried. You know what's ironic about that is when he was a rookie, they were really good. Davey Johnson was a manager. They shut him down, not just for the regular season, but into the playoffs when he reached his inning limit. That team could have won a World Series. Davey Johnson was ballistic about it. I read a book. He's got a book, biography. I don't think that's that old. I read it recently. And he went ballistic about this. He's like, you don't get a chance to win the World Series every year. And the ironic part is they think they're protecting these kids' careers, and then they go off the rails anyway with injuries. What are you protecting them from?
Yep. That was a shame.
You got to go for it, not just,
That was a lot of heat. I remember that.
Yeah.
Keep an eye on Mackenzie Gore.
Mm-hmm.
He's got potential. I mean, they wouldn't have traded for him.
And there's always Boom,
Oh yeah. And Kyle Finnegan is their closer. Ooh. And Cade Cavalli just got injured yet again. So, no. I think the Marlins will beat the Nationals, but who cares?
I'm going to say it's a great race to 60 wins. And
the bottom.
The winner goes the spoils or the spoiled, whatever.
Right.
Now we're going to move to the Central, and I'm going to. Last year,
you and your Brewers.
I got it. I'm going to do it again. I'm telling you right now, I'm going to do it again. So, this division, the Cardinals, they've hit the ball like crazy in the spring here. But again, that's spring training. They've got some good young players. They've got one of the best players defensively and offensively, and two guys in Goldschmidt and Arriendo, and some guys that play really good baseball, Cardinal kind of baseball. But the pitching is, Wainwright's, I think he finished a year behind me in high school, I'm pretty sure. And, Jack Flaherty maybe will bounce back. But if they think Jordan Montgomery is the pitcher they had the first 3 weeks that came over from the Yankees, that's not who Jordan Montgomery is, guys. Just if you're Cardinal fans, don't get used to seeing that because it's not going to happen again. The Cubs, I don't know what they're doing. Anthony Swanson, nice signing. Everything else, a head scratcher. Pirates are the Pirates. I think the Brewers finally, and again, not great hitters, but I think they've got enough hitting to support one of the better pitching staffs in baseball. We talked about some good staffs. This is a good staff. They need to score runs, though, and it's shocking. I mean, how their management didn't get fired immediately after the trading deadline last year when they don't trade for any hitters with the pitching staff that they had when they were still in the race is beyond me. But I think Contreras will help them a lot. He's a really good bat, and hopefully he can catch well enough to play every day. That'll see. I think Adames will bounce back a bit if he can stay healthy. He's another guy who needs to stay healthy. And I think Jesse Winkler will be better here than he was in Seattle. I don't know why. I just think he will.
That's not saying much.
Evan Williams really underrated closer. This guy's got some nasty stuff. And again, that starting staff of Burns and Woodruff and Peralta and Lauer's not bad. And Wade Miley,
He's an innings eater, but he's not a terrible innings eater.
Yeah, as far as number 5 guys go, there's far worse number 5 guys in the league. We just talked about some of them. I think the team is going to surprise. And the manager of the year in the National League, just like I said last year, Craig Counsell's a good manager.
Yes.
And maybe Christian Yelich bounces back this year. I don't need him to be Christian Yelich. I just need him to be a decent major league outfielder. This team could, if they score enough runs, I still think they're going to come back and win this division this year. There you go. Go ahead.
Okay.
Now you can go. Now wins, by the way. It's not going to take a lot. This is not a good division.
No, it is not a good. Well, neither of the Centrals are.
85, 87 wins might win this thing,
Easily.
Yes.
I've got the Cardinals, though.
Listen, it's a fair pick. I'm not telling you that. If anybody told me I was crazy, I would not be able to have an argument that they were wrong. So,
it's a solid team, and they have potential on top of that. So, Contreras is now their catcher. Goldschmidt, obviously. Arenado, obviously, is the core. They need O'Neill to bounce back. If he can, that would be ideal. Jordan Walker, their number one prospect is up, which shocked a lot of people. I mean, it relegated Dylan Carlson of all people to the bench, and that's impressive. Don't sleep on Nootbaar, and I think you're going to see another breakout from Nolan Gorman as DH and occasionally infielder. It is a really balanced team. They can field like nobody's business. They're built on fielding. Run prevention is paramount with them. The pitching staff is a little scary. It's not a terrible pitching staff. It's not a great pitching staff. If Flaherty bounces back even close to what he was, that would help. I don't expect him to. I think he'll be.
Yeah, I don't either.
I think he'll be in the same category as Nicholas and Montgomery and Matz. Woodford takes over for Wainwright for now.
Nicholas is a good pitcher, but again, he's not. I don't think he's a number one guy. I wouldn't want to be a number one guy.
You've got a staff of number 3 guys essentially, but they've got a good bullpen. So if their guys only give them 5 innings, then okay. Helsley, Gallegos, Zach Thompson.
Yeah,
it's a good bullpen. It's not in league with the other ones we saw, but it's up there. It's not as deep as the issue, but their top 3 are really good.
They're going to need it because you're not going to get a lot of innings out of Flaherty, Montgomery, and Wainwright for those 3 at least, for sure.
Exactly.
That bullpen's going to get used a lot, maybe too much.
Over, yeah.
Summer, so
it's a possibility. Brewers, they're also built on fielding. That's also one of their hallmarks. They are not as balanced. They're a power team. They are not a batting average team. So they don't get a lot of guys on base, but they like hitting it over the fence. The other Contreras, Adames, Tellez, Ramon Urias, maybe Winker, maybe Voit if they come back doing anything. It's power. It's not batting average. It's
really Adames a lot. I really do. I think he's got to get his average up, right? The power's nice, but you got to get that average up to at least to the 280 mark. You can't hit.
They're all like that. Urias is like that. Tellez is like that. Their whole infield is built that way.
I mean, you can hit 238 if your on base percentage is going to be 350, but his is not even 300. It's terrible,
right? And that's an issue. Their starters, I mean, you already went through them. It's a good staff. Peralta's been injured, so we don't really know how he's going to bounce back. The thing that scares me about Burns, ironically, I'm not sure his head's in the game. He is really pissed about his contract status.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't pitch well in spring training, which doesn't mean anything per se. But if it keeps going into the season, this could be an issue. He may be forcing a trade if he can get out.
That'd be bad, and I'd change my pick.
Yeah, there you go. Williams is good in the bullpen. Bush can be good. They're not as deep as they used to be. They got a bunch of no names behind those two, and we're not sure if they're going to live up to the Brewer way when it comes to relief staff.
Yeah, their moving of Hader last year is a head scratcher to me. I mean, him and Williams were a great two-headed monster in that bullpen. The guy they brought back, Trent Rogers, right? He's gone.
He's gone.
He's gone, and I don't even know what they got left to show for that trade, to be honest with you. I don't remember who else came. I don't even remember who else came.
I'd have to look it up. I think there were some minor leaguers in there, and
Yeah, so
that's where Milwaukee has some opportunities. They've got a guy starting in center field, fast as hell, great fielder.
Oh, Mitchell, yeah.
Garrett Mitchell, I actually have as a Rookie of the Year candidate. And right behind him, they have Sal Frelick and Joey Weimer coming up if they need an infielder. They got Bryce Terang, who's also a rookie. He's their number 5 rookie playing second base this season. He's all field. He's not a great hitter. Nothing exciting there.
CA's been giving me the play-by-play in the White Sox game here.
So I
Rose again. He'll be listening.
That's fine. But I think it's the lack of being able to hit consistently and the lack of depth in the bullpen that scare me about the Brewers being able to overtake the Cardinals.
Well, I only take them because the Cardinals, again, I like watching the Cardinals play baseball because, again, it's
the way.
Yeah, it's
like watching The Mandalorian.
Yeah. I'm not sure I get the. You got to. I missed something with the context.
They talk about the way, so there's a way.
Okay, I missed that part. All right, cool. But the rest of this division, these are the only 2 teams that got a chance to win this division. I mean, who else? I mean, who's going to finish third? It's got to be the Cubs, I think. I'm not sure because I don't know what they're doing. I mean, who's running this freaking team? People really think that Cody Bellinger is going to come back after the years he's had the last few years and be an MVP candidate. I don't even think he's a comeback player of the year candidate. And the other guys they bring into play, Jan Gomes, Hosner, Michael Ford, a nice player, but he's going to be your closer. Marcus Stroman's your number 1 starter. Cubs fans, look, Trey Mancini's a nice story, but he's on the downside of his career.
Yep.
Suzuki, I don't think is going to be Ichiro. Sorry. So other than Dansby Swanson, I know they like Horner, the second baseman, the kid, a lot. So maybe he'll amount to something, and maybe he'll be something to watch this summer in Chicago. But I can't get excited about this team. Maybe they'll be better than the Pirates. And that's all I can say good about them. And
no,
everybody be better than the Reds.
Yeah, it was interesting how they tried to build the team. They need Bellinger, they need Mancini, they need Edwin Rios to bounce back. Even Hosmer, they need all of these guys to have some sort of resurrection, and it's not going to happen. Swanson basically
does. That's not enough, right?
No. They're basically trying to build around Swanson, Happ, and Horner.
I do like Happ. I didn't mention him. I'm glad you brought him up. I do like him a lot. Another guy the Yankees have been chasing after to play left field, but hasn't worked out. Maybe at this trading deadline that'll happen because I don't see Happ being here for the whole year.
No, it's not a good team. Keep an eye. They do have a starter that you should keep an eye on. His name is Hayden Wesneski. He's their number 5 starter, and the only reason he's in it is because Hendricks is injured. Not that anybody would know. But he's
His
got
mom,
some good
his mom
stuff.
would notice. His mom would notice.
He's got some good stuff, and I think eventually he's going to end up knocking somebody else out, whether it's Steele or Smiley, when Hendricks comes back. I think he's pretty good. Keep an eye on him. Otherwise, bleh. I actually have them for fourth. I have someone ahead of them.
Who you got ahead? You got the Reds ahead of them? No.
I actually do. I actually do.
Let's take a look at that team then.
I didn't say by much.
I hope not. I don't think I have any of those three teams winning more than 70 games. The Cubs, Pirates, and Reds.
Oh, hell no.
So it might be a close race there. Go ahead. Give us your Reds rundown here.
Hitting's going to be a challenge. They do have Stevenson. If Jonathan India bounces back, that would help. Will Myers, okay. Otherwise, they're in trouble. Votto's out. The bench is more of the same. They're carrying three catchers. They're not a good fielding team, especially at third base. They're brought up their number 5 prospect, Spencer Steer, to do third. Good hitter, not a good fielder at all. The starters are actually not bad.
I like Hunter Green. I think he's got some good potential. Yes,
he's got enormous. His second half. I mean, everyone looks at his season numbers, but his second half was superlative. And Lodolo looks really good as a counterpoint to Green, who throws the heat. Lodolo, who's also the opposite hand, is more finesse, and he looked good. And Ashcraft also looked good. So they got 3 solid ones. And if Luke Weaver comes back, he's injured right now. He's a number 4. He's not a bad number 4. He's a number 4. That's not a bad staff.
Luis Sessa, one guy who has pitched good for the Yankees at different times, he's got some potential to at least help this team out in kind of a dual role, I think, between starting and relieving.
Oh yeah, with Weaver out, he actually moved into the rotation. So it's not, and the bullpen actually. Well, we got the healthy Diaz is there, and the younger brother, and they've got some youngins behind. The issue they've got here is injuries. Sims is injured, Antone is injured, Santillon is injured. So the core of their setup crew and middle relief is injured right now, and that's going to be a problem. The funny thing is, if you know anything about Cincy, this is a home run ballpark.
Yes.
And here you have the strength of the team now is its pitching and not its hitting.
Yeah. I mean,
which is the irony.
Will Myers is your big power hitter here with Votto, right?
Yeah, it's not good. There is help on the way. There is help on the way, and they've got some really superlative prospects coming up in the line. All infielders, interestingly. So if these guys come up, Dela Cruz, Marte, Encarnacion Strand, who had a great spring, but still needs to learn how to take a pitch. It's going to be a team to watch. It's not this year. But if they can get their pitchers healthy and these guys come up, maybe next year, definitely the year after, you're going to be looking at these guys as division contenders. Right now, I figured they might skip by the Cubs.
Well, they've got a goal this year then, don't they?
They do.
Which brings us to the Pirates, who I guess by default have to finish last. You look at, there's a couple good young players here in Brian Hayes and Brian Reynolds, who's probably not long for this team, but as soon as the Pirates stop asking for a Juan Soto type deal for Brian Reynolds, they'll probably trade him. But again, Rich Hill's your number 2 starter. Spells 64 wins to me. Andrew McCutcheon's one of your bigger moves. Decent. If this was, 15 years ago, I'd say that's awesome. But, it's not. It's 2023. Now, the Cruz, the shortstop, is an interesting guy to watch. 6'8". He's got some pop. He can play pretty good defense for 6'8" too. Can run a little bit. He's going to be fun to watch on this team. I love Brian Hayes. I don't know if he's ever going to hit with the power even his father had, who was, had middling power, really good fielder. But I don't think Brian Hayes is really going to turn into a superstar in this league. I think he'll be a decent player in the league for quite a while, but not the kind of guy you're going to build a franchise around.
No. He's all glove. He will give you some batting average. He does take a pitch, which you always want to see in young hitters. But it's basically Reynolds and Cruz and hope for some guys to come up from the minors.
And Bob Noda, if you're still watching, Bob goes to the Yankee fantasy camps every year, and I know him and Charlie Hayes are kind of tight. So I don't think O'Brien's a bad baseball player. I'm just, I don't mean to knock him that much. I just,
No, he hit for power when he first came up, and that was fiction. That was pitchers not knowing what his wheelhouse was. Yeah. They've got the book on him. He's a decent hitter. He's a fabulous fielder.
Yeah.
But he's not. If you're looking at the corners for your power, he's not going to provide that.
No.
So that's an issue. They brought in Austin Hedges, which, he's not a hitter.
No.
But he's important because they need to develop their pitchers, and he is a great catcher. So I think that's the main reason they brought him in was to help their pitchers develop. So there's that. He's not going to contribute anything during the game, occasional home run. But that's really what he was brought in for.
Yeah, I am interested to see what he can do with some of those young guys like Rich Hill and helping them develop.
They've got two pitchers actually with some potential, and that's Mitch Keller, who seems to all of a sudden have the light bulb went on after a couple of years of sucking. Mitch Keller is pitching really well. He pitched decently last year, and he's even better in spring training. So he seems to have it. And Roundsy Contreras, tons of potential. And, it's the same thing as the hitters who come up that can't take a walk. He can't find the plate sometimes, which is typical. But if he gets some control, he's got really good stuff. And then, of course, there are two big prospects, one of which you'll probably see this year are their catchers, Andy Rodriguez and Henry Davis. I think you'll see Rodriguez this year, eventually, to study, if you will, under Hedges. Oh, by the way, going back to the Brewers for a second, that brings up another point. Contreras, great hitter. William Contreras, great hitter. Not that great a catcher, and which is really important for that staff. But they also brought in Victor Caratini to mentor him. So anytime they want to, they can put Caratini in at catcher and put Contreras in at DH and let their pitchers get a break, if you will. That's catchers, everyone's always looking. It's nice to have a hitting catcher like, a Real Muto or a Rutschman. But sometimes you just need him to handle the staff.
Or his brother, he's a good bat too. And, we didn't talk about that. So staying in the past here a second.
Division.
The Cardinals, I think, are going to miss Yadier Molina a lot. Now, Contreras is a decent catcher. He's not Yadier Molina behind the plate.
He's improved.
And he's not the leader in the clubhouse that this guy was, and the handler of pitchers that this guy was. So right. I think that's something that you got to take into consideration as well. He's a very good major league catcher.
He is,
but Yadi is in a class by himself.
Yeah, his handling of pitchers, he made a lot of pitchers look better than they actually were.
First ballot Hall of Famer for sure.
Yep. But yeah, that's the Pirates, and they've got 4 or 5 years to go before they're relevant.
Worst division in baseball by far, in my mind, this NL Central. The AL Central is behind it, but
yeah, not by much, but yeah, I agree.
Let's move out west, where Obviously, the Padres, they'll probably have. I saw something today that they'll probably be trading for Otani by the All-Star break, and they're going to trade 17 players, and the GM is going to trade himself in the same trade as well. So,
I don't think they want Preller.
but, I mean, if you played baseball on paper, which you obviously do not, this team looks great. Their first three starters are really good. They got a pretty good bullpen. They got bats coming up just everywhere. And the Dodgers have lost a lot with I think, especially with Lux going out. Now their infield's really in flux. Outside of Freddie Freeman, you have Max Muncy, who don't knows, he'll be playing everywhere, a different position every night. But this is a division that the Padres are not a given. The Dodgers always find a way to do it. If their pitchers stay healthy, I think they can stay close. There's a team to watch. I think the Diamondbacks are going to surprise people this year. I don't think they're going to win this division. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but I think they're going to win 84, 85 games. I think there might be like their over-under might have been like 78 for them. But I think they're going to win 84, 85 games. Giants, I think, will finish behind the Diamondbacks. And then, of course, the Rockies are just the Rockies. So let's start with, I'm going to pick the Padres to win this division just because there's just too much talent not to win a division in my mind. Now, it could implode chemistry-wise. Once Tatis ends up being, the fifth highest paid player on this team after signing that very lucrative contract a few years ago. But, gosh, there's just stars everywhere. Can this team not win 100 games and walk away with this division?
Yes.
Yes, because you do play the game on the field on paper. I don't disagree. I do think they'll win the division, but
okay.
But there's still Tatis is there's a bit of a head case. He's got to change positions now. Again, he's got a couple of guys, and with Soto's got to get paid yet. Still, they still got to pay him. They had a question. Trent Grisham had a great year in center field. Great year. He had a great playoff in center field against the Mets. He's a really good glove. He didn't hit a lick until he got to the playoffs last year. Matt Carpenter's penciled in as a DH. Again, nice run with the Yankees last year, but, he didn't have very good years for about 4 years before that. Bogarts, I think he's a good player. I think he'll really help this team, probably more than Tatis will, to be honest with you. Bullpen I like. Hader had a tough start when he got there, but I think he's kind of got himself back together. To me, it's going to be the back of the rotation, the middle of the bullpen, and whether these superstars can play together. It will determine how far this team goes. I think they win 100 games and win the division. We'll see how far they go after that.
Okay. I've got the Dodgers actually taking it. Not by much. As far as their infield goes, they are actually set. Luckily, they had picked up a backup shortstop.
And the Marlins, right?
Huh?
Wasn't he with the Marlins last year?
Yes. Yeah, Rojas.
Yeah.
Great fielder, which it's the Dodgers, so what do you expect?
Mm-hmm.
They've always made fielding a priority. There are certain teams that have a history of making fielding a priority. The Dodgers, the Brewers, always believe in it. The Astros believe in it. There's a handful of teams that always make that a priority, and they got him as a backup, and then Lux goes down, and now he's your starter. He's not going to hit a ton, but he is a really good glove, and he's got some speed. He could steal, especially with the new rules. So he's shortstop. They've got their number 3 prospect, Michael Vargas, playing second. That's a learning curve. He was really a third baseman. They got Muncy over there on third. So this sort of gives the fielding a little bit of a hit. But if he hits anywhere close to what he did in the minors, who knows? He might even be better in Lux.
Mm-hmm.
And Freeman, of course. I mean, Freeman. So the infield's set. The outfield's interesting. They brought in again. You want to know what their philosophy is? Who do they bring in? Haywood, Peralta, and they brought up one their what number is he? Number 9 rookie, James Outman.
Mm-hmm.
All defenders. They are all defenders with speed in the outfield because that's what they do. They still got Betts. Who knows? Can JD Martinez bounce back a little bit? It's not a bad team. Is it across the board of the Padres? Well, we'll get to them in a second. But the Padres, it's the big names grab all the headlines. But Kim, okay. Cronenworth, okay. Grisham, okay.
Those players you need to kind of grind things out and win, though. You need
no
players
question.
on those teams, yes.
But everyone's like, oh, this team's going to rock 'em, sock 'em. Well, those guys aren't rock 'em, sock 'em guys. They're get the job done, make the play every time kind of players. But they're not necessarily going to be hitters that are going to move around. Padres are going to rely on their big four.
But they have a big four, and the Dodgers don't. The Dodgers got 2 unproven rookies that you talked about. They got Max Muncy, who's basically Joey Gallo with a worse body. Mookie Betts is a really good player. Freeman is a great player. JD Martinez is probably just an even swap for Turner. I mean, I wouldn't expect to get much more than they got out of Turner. To me, it's going to come down to a pitching staff that, is they're all a lot of injury questions there, right? If they're healthy, this is a really good staff, but every one of them's got question marks.
Right. And that's where I think the Dodgers will leak it out. Obviously losing Gonsolin hurts. But they still got Kershaw. They still got Urias. They brought in Syndergaard. He'll be an innings eater. He's not what he was.
I think Syndergaard, a year off of the surgery, his arm surgery, I think will be better than he was last year. And I think
I agree.
People give him credit for last year.
Yeah. Dustin May is also a year removed. Yeah. He's back in. And they've got right now their number 6 prospect, Pepio, taking Gonsolin's place at the back of the rotation. So that's solid. Their bullpen is always solid. They got Vesia, they got Phillips, they got Gratterall, they got Ferguson. These are not household names, but they're all effective.
They're all good pitchers, yeah.
And they're going to have Dan Hudson coming back at the end of April. So that's where I think the difference is because, right now the starters for the Padres are Snell, Nick Martinez. You got Lugo. You got Weathers, who still hasn't shown his potential yet. Wacha. Darvish is not. He's going to pitch later because of his WBC work. So he's not officially in the rotation right now. Musgrove obviously is still hurt and recuperating. They'll both be back sooner than later, and that'll help the rotation quite a bit and makes them certainly competitive with the Dodgers as far as a rotation. But until then, And the bullpen, they've got 2 major pieces missing. They got Hader, and they've got Luis Garcia. But Robert Suarez, who they just signed long-term, just got injured. Pomeranz still not back. If he does come back, I expect Pomeranz to be good. But they don't have a lot behind those 2 guys. And that's kind of scary. Tim Hill, okay. That's what I think separates the 2 teams is the arms. There's no question. Bogarts, Machado, Soto, Tatis, that's quality stuff if they all play together in the same sandbox.
Well, I think I think they're still a good team. But here's my prediction for them. You've got them winning. I've got them finish second again. We're flip-flops like we were with Toronto and the Yankees.
Yep.
The Dodgers, I will predict right now, will win 20 less games than they won last year. They'll still make the playoffs. That's still a pretty good year. They're going to win 87 games. Sounds awful, but it's still 87 wins and a playoff victory. I just think there's going to be injuries. We've already seen it with Gonsolin, as we saw, and Kershaw's going to be out at some point. They've all had their issues, so
I don't know if he'll be out, but he's only going to pitch 120 innings. So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I think he'll be good enough to make the playoffs. I just think, and the management in San Diego is no chopped liver either. I think they could do that's the kind of guy who I think can keep the lid on maybe these superstars. Again, it's a crapshoot. I'm not saying the whole thing could implode. We've seen that type of experiment not work in the past. But I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with the two of them. And the Diamondbacks, I think, will take a step forward. Again, I don't think they'll make the playoffs, but I do think they win 84, 85 games and push the Dodgers a little bit for second place and maybe a playoff, potential playoff. I like a lot of the kids here. I love Carroll. I think he's a rookie of the year in the National League myself. I love McCarthy. I mean, they got a bunch of guys who can run, go get the baseball. They probably got the fastest outfield in baseball, I would say.
Until Milwaukee brings up Frelick and their other guys, they've – and it's comparable. It's the same type of thing. 3 really fast, really good fielders with some power occasionally. Yeah, that's a solid outfield. And if those Alec Thomas is the third.
He's no chopped livery. Now, if those kids play up to their potential, and it's a big if, just like the Dodgers guys, right? And some of the veterans maybe play back to their – Christian Walker was okay last year, but, he's got to be better. Marte's been hurt a lot. If he plays to his potential, again, a lot of ifs, I get it. I think this team's got some they got some guys that can pitch. I like Gallion. I like Merrill Kelly's potential as well. Baumgartner, he's probably a better hitter at this point in his career than he is a pitcher. But, at least, but he's a good role model for these kids at the top here, right? He'll be the DH some days because Lourdes Gurriel's the DH. So, listen, I just think the team that last year made some strides. They had a really good stretch, if you remember, for a couple of months in the middle of the season where they made a run at 500 and fell back a little bit at the end of the season. And I think they take a small step forward, and next year this team is going to be a contender, I think, in the National League.
I agree with that, although I still have the Giants ahead of them, not by much. I think Diamondbacks still have some gaping holes that the Giants don't have, which allows the Giants to slip by them, mostly in pitching in with their arms. You mentioned the 2 stars, Gallen and Kelly, Merrill Kelly, are really good pitchers, and they're not old. They're not up in years. They've got a lot of years ahead of them, and they're only going to get better. They have no bullpen. They have no bullpen at all.
Mm-hmm.
When your official closer is still Melanson and he's injured, and Montepley is injured, they got nobody. If your other 3 starters, if Bumgarner and Davies really don't pitch, you're screwed. Two names you did not bring up. They've got some pitchers coming up. One of them made the rotation. That's Ryan Nelson.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one is Drew Jameson.
Yeah.
And they've both got great potential. Nelson's actually their number 6 prospect. Jameson's their number 7. They got another guy on the farm, Brandon Pfaadt, who almost made the team. PFAADT. He's not fat. He's just fat. Who I expect you'll also see up. So they have the potential for a really quality staff. I think Nelson and Jameson are going to have some warts this year. There's going to be a learning curve. You're not going to see the potential fully met.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the biggest issue they've got is their bullpen is non-existent.
That's going to be their biggest hurdle. I agree.
The strength here obviously is the outfield: Carroll, McCarthy, Thomas, and they picked up Lourdes Gurriel, who's a great outfielder. And if he gets his power back, holy crap, They picked up Kyle Lewis, a former Rookie of the Year. That's their outfield.
Well, Gurriel's not going to get a chance of playing the outfield. He's probably going to be the DH.
He's probably going to be the DH because he's not as fast as the other three.
Yeah, he'll play some, but he's not going to be the starter.
Correct.
Yeah.
Walker slams. I mean, the guy hit 30-plus home runs. It's not an average hitter, but he slams. He takes a walk. That's okay. Rojas at third. Again, not your quintessential third baseman. There's no power. He's a speed guy. He steals. And he's going to steal a lot this year. I guarantee it. They lost Carson Kelly for a while with the broken arm. That's not good. Good catcher. Handles pitchers well. Nelson and Jameson could have used him.
Yeah, I like Kelly.
That's also going to hurt them.
What's he going to miss? Like 2 months? I don't even know.
I think it's a couple of months. Now that being said, they got Gabriel Moreno from the Jays, who were stacked at catcher and didn't need him, which is ironic. Great hitter. He's got some chops as a catcher. He's not Carson Kelly. So there's going to be a learning curve there. May hurt the pitching staff.
He might have
actually
Kelly though, but
he'll probably hit better than Kelly. Yeah. No question. I don't know if there's going to be power. He's not a power hitter. He's an average hitter.
Yeah.
Which you still need those guys too. So there's pieces here, but the lack of a bullpen is a problem.
I don't know where CA. I didn't see this right away, CA. So I don't know which guy you're talking about. 38. I know we're talking. That's got to be. Could be Bob Gardner.
Yeah, not good. Or Kyle Davies. So there's holes there. I think the Giants have more. They don't have the potential. Not even close. But I think they've got more in place that will perform this year, combined with their pitching. Their pitching is phenomenal. Shame they don't have the hitting to back it up. That I think puts them over the Diamondbacks.
You think the Giants' pitching is that good?
I do. And it's deep. Now, could it be injured? Yeah. Logan Webb, Cobb, Manea, Stripling over from Toronto. Alex Wood looks healthy for a change. And they still got DeSclafani, who's in the pen of all places. And their bullpen, holy crap. Doval, Taylor Rogers, Tyler Rogers, any other Rogers you could figure they got. John Brebbia's back there. Scott Alexander, who they stole from the Dodgers.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a bullpen. Pitching is their strength. Shocking. Hitting is not.
Unless Michael Conforto, can turn back the clock about 4 years, I just don't see how this team's going to score any runs.
You need him to do that. You need J.D. Davis. By the way, that was a steal of a trade with the Mets. I mean, the Mets just released Darren Ruff, and they traded 4 guys for him, including a quality pitcher, reliever, and J.D. Davis, who could easily be a comeback player of the year, possibly.
No, that was a good trade for the Giants for sure.
It was a fabulous trade for the Giants. Crawford is playing out the string. Yastrzemski was a flash in the pan. Joey Bart still hasn't shown what he can do. They're relying on Yarrow, Estrada, and a new kid, Blake Sobel, their third catcher who plays outfield, to do a lot of hitting for. And Jock Peterson, who's found a home and is actually doing well as long as they platoon him okay.
I think they just got a lot of guys who are the same kind of, middle of the road hitter, and Haniger and Peterson, and
who's injured.
Probably Conforto. Now Conforto could come back and maybe he's another guy to watch out for comeback player of the year, because he could have a very good year if he's handled right and he's kept himself in baseball condition while he sat out last year. But Wilmer Flores, I mean, there's a lot of former prospects here that, there's a reason they're former prospects, or kids.
Yep.
Estrada and Wade. Somebody could step up here and do well, but I got this team finishing 500 at best.
Probably. I just think they're going to be a hair above the Diamondbacks, only because of the pitching issues.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'd put the Diamondbacks way above the Giants. But
Fair enough.
pitching is, especially in a short series, obviously that's the old saw, if you will. Good pitching always beats good hitting. But in general,
it went away, by the way, because we don't want pitchers to beat good hitters anymore.
Not according to Manfred.
Go into the fact that since 1968, every rule change in baseball has been against the pitchers and for the offense. Every single one.
That's okay. They'll quick pitch all the hitters with this time clock. It'll work in their favor, even though it wasn't supposed to.
Maybe the smart ones, but there aren't that many smart ones. That's the problem. Most of them are like Newt LaLoosh. They're from what was that? Oh, Bull Durham, right?
Yeah, Bull Durham.
Anyway,
so I've got the Giants slightly ahead, but the Diamondbacks are definitely a team on the make. And if they can get their pitching up and bring up Brandon Pfaadt and Jameson and Nelson and get their bullpen straight, they really need to do that. They will be a good team.
Webb didn't look good today. Well, it's only
actually that's not true. If you look at his numbers, CA, his numbers are actually excellent. What killed him were the 2 home runs he gave up, which made his ERA inflated. But if you look at his walks per 9, his hits per 9, and his Ks, it actually was a very good day.
Wow.
So you got to look at the box score. Now, if he keeps giving up home runs, he's not going to look good any day. But
right.
He's got to stop doing that. But he usually doesn't do that. That was.
Yeah, I also said much earlier on that the Rangers had a great day today too, and I doubt they're going to go 162-0. I don't think anyway. I think that'd be some kind of record.
It might be.
It might be. So we got one last team to talk about here before we talk about the playoffs and the World Series.
Oh boy.
And it's our last team that's fighting relegation to a lower league, the Colorado Rockies. Good grief. Kyle Freeland pitched really pretty well in the WBC. He will not pitch nearly that well in Colorado. Ryan McMahon, always a potential to break out. Been waiting for it for about 7 years. Hasn't happened. They picked up Profar this year. Big deal. Nice off the bench.
Starting in the outfield. Yes. He's a starting outfielder.
Yes. If you had him on your bench, I'd say good. You got a great bench player, but not playing every day. No. Randall Grichuk, the same thing. They got a bunch of guys who'll be nice bench players. Chris Bryant, what is he doing in Colorado? I have no idea.
Money.
He does. Charlie Blackmon's best days are behind him. CJ Cron. Maybe he'll turn into a decent player. I just don't see how he's going to win again. How's this team going to win 70 games? I just don't think they will. Or can you
No. Ryan McMahon, he'll hit some home runs. He's a great fielder. I mean, that's why they felt they could let Arenado go. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't hit for average. Cron turned in. It's funny when Cron was in a couple of places, he could hit anywhere.
Yeah.
But once he hit Colorado, all of a sudden he can only hit home runs in Colorado, and he's the typical player.
Yep.
Rogers got injured. They lost Brendan Rodgers. That didn't help.
Nice. Yes, nice play. That's why McMahon's playing second base.
Right. They've got that. Here's a comeback player for you. Moustakas.
I just looked at him like he's going to say Mike Moustakas. I know he is.
Only if they give him the at bats. He has routine. One of the things you hear this all the time, but when someone retools their swing, particularly a veteran, it can really make some significant changes. And Moustakas Moose was heading down the wrong path. Everyone knew it. He's actually back. How did he retool it? Back to what made him successful years ago. He may be an interest. He's going to be the next Cron. You're going to see some home runs. He's going to be an interesting guy to watch. He's not going to bring this team anywhere, but it's just an interesting guy to watch. Their starting rotation doesn't scare anybody. Bart is solid, but they need bounce back from Brad Hand, Dinelson Lamet, Ty Blotch. Really? No. They just installed the kid, 20-year-old at shortstop. Yes, it is, especially for hitting.
It's
Not
a
so
great
much
place
for
to watch
pitching.
a game. When I worked for Coors distributor, we went out to Colorado a few times. It's a beautiful ballpark. It's a great place to watch a game, unless you're actually a Rocky fan, then I'm sure it's not so great.
I'm just curious. I've never been there. Are the nosebleed seats there really nosebleed seats because of the altitude?
There's actually a purple line where it's exactly 1 mile high in the stadium, and we actually hoofed it up there, and you're actually breathing hard when you get up there because of the altitude. So that was like 25 years ago. But I was younger then.
Yeah.
It wasn't just because I'm old and fat now.
Weren't we all? Yeah. Okay. I mean, we're done with these guys. They're the Pirates. They've got years to go before they're relevant.
Agreed. As to a few teams. So let's move to the important stuff. Let's just recap real quick. Division winners who make the playoffs. I have the Yankees. You have Toronto. I have Cleveland. You have Minnesota.
Yep.
I have the Astros, and you do too. And we have Seattle second. We both have the Braves winning the East. I have the Brewers. You have the Cardinals in the Central of the NL. I have Engle. You have LA in the East. Or I'm sorry, the West. So that leaves 3 wild card teams. Who you got in the American League making a wild card?
I got the Yankees, the Rays, and the Mariners.
Yankees, Rays, and Mariners. I have Toronto, Seattle, and Minnesota.
So we all have the same playoff teams. We just don't have them in the same order.
Very interesting. So, and the National League, who do you have in the playoffs?
The Padres, the Mets, and the Phillies.
And I've got the Mets, the Dodgers, and the Cards. So we do have one different.
There you go.
We have one different team there.
One different team.
I don't have the Phillies in. Who did you have in? You don't have.
I don't have the Brewers.
Oh, the Brewers, right. You don't have them getting in at all, right? That's your big difference, right? Okay, so NLCS. Who off in the the AL? We'll start in the AL. Who faces off in the ALCS?
I only went as far as the series, and I've got the Blue Jays winning the league.
Winning the World Series?
No, the league.
Oh, the league. I'm sorry. All right, so I have New York against Houston again, and Houston winning again 4-3, and Houston going to the World Series for the American League. The National League?
I've got the Braves.
I also have the Braves. I have the Braves against the Padres in the almost took the Brewers, by the way, just an FYI, but I didn't. The Braves just have too much. The lineup's too good. The pitching's too good. It's similar to the Astros. So I have them winning, and I have a Braves-Houston rematch from a couple of years ago, and Houston in 7 games getting Dusty Baker back-to-back World Series. First time, I think it's happened in about 20 years.
I've actually got the Braves beating the Blue Jays.
Braves beating the Blue Jays. That's a rematch of about 30 years ago then, I think. Right? Did they play in 92? Did they play back-to-back World Series?
I don't think so.
No, Toronto
did. Toronto did.
Yeah, they played Philadelphia and the Braves, right?
Right.
A couple of great series, by the way. So I have Houston winning, and you have the Braves winning.
Yeah, let's record this time so we can compare later.
Yes, I got to keep my notes instead of tossing them in the garbage later on. Real quick, let's go through because we've gone a little bit over. Let's do real quick the major award winners. And MVP in the American League, I have J-Rod. In the National League, I have Soto.
Okay. I have typical people to look at. I got Guerrero, I got Judge, I got Devers, Ramirez, Tucker, Ohtani, and Sager. I actually have Sager or Ramirez winning the MVP.
Interesting. Cy Young.
And in the NL,
that's right.
In the NL.
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, your turn.
I had Soto winning in the NL. You're good.
That's right. I've got people you can look at. Acuna. I got Trey Turner. I think he'll fall into the conversation because he's so vital to the Phillies. I got Arenado again. I got Freeman. I got Soto. I got Carroll actually as a possible MVP. He's not going to win it, I've got either Acuna or I actually have Acuna as the MVP.
All right. Cy Young, American League. I have McClanahan from Tampa Bay. And I think you had taken his teammate, right?
Well, he's in there. He's certainly up for it. You got some quality guys here: Manoah, Springs, Bieber, Cease. Two guys from Houston, Valdez and Javier.
Yep.
Castillo, Otani, and if he were ever healthy, DeGrom. Obviously, you can't discount him. But I actually have Bieber or Springs winning the Cy Young.
National League, I've got Strider from the Braves.
And I have, until he just got injured, Fried, Strider, Verlander, Alcantara. I got Luzardo in there. I got Burns, Snell, Webb, and Gallen. But I actually picked Strider.
Rookie of the Year, strong contenders in the American League. Oof. I will take in an upset. I know you don't like him, Volpe. Play shortstop for the New York Yankees. He only has to have a decent numbers, play decent defense. He'll win the National League. He'll win the Rookie of the Year in the American League.
Here are the guys going against him: Gunnar Henderson, Grayson Rodriguez, Tristan Cassis, Logan Ohop, Hunter Brown, and Josh Young.
Considered all of them, and none of them play shortstop for the New York Yankees.
I've actually got Henderson or Young as the Rookie of the Year.
All good picks.
Jung.
And I've got Carroll easily in the National League in my mind.
You know, I would have thought that, and he's certainly in the conversation. But here's the list I've got. I've got Jared Schuster. I've got Brett Batty. I've got Jordan Walker, who's now up. Garrett Mitchell, Hayden Wesneski, I mentioned. James Outman joining Carroll. I think the top three are going to be Schuster, Walker, and Carroll. I actually have Schuster winning it.
Good choice. Manager of the Year. In the American League, who do I have? I've got Dusty Baker.
Okay.
With the Manager of the Year award in the American League with a very good team. Hard to do sometimes when you're expected to win, but I think Dusty Baker does it this year.
And that's the thing is, it tends to go to somebody that took a team that overproduced.
Like Craig Counsell pick in the National League.
I've got, the four I looked at were Baldelli, Cash, Surveys, and Nevin. I actually picked Baldelli.
I was very close at taking Rocco Baldelli, and I'm like, I can't really take him if I'm taking him to get beat in the division. But I guess you could still do it. But I think they're going to win, and he's going to have to perform some miracles because of the injuries to do it, and I think that'll get him the recognition. Plus, I think I took him last year, which I think left a bad taste in my mouth. So. Comeback Player of the Year. I have Anthony Rendon.
Wait. Who'd you have for National League?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you did it. I have Craig Counsell.
Okay. I didn't look at Counsell. I think they're going to, as you know, I didn't think they'd make the playoffs. So I actually have Snitker, Showalter, because he's going to have to pull some strings this year more than last year.
Yep, good thought.
Marmol, same thing for the Cards. Lavulo, because he's going to pull that team together. The Diamondbacks, and I actually have Roberts winning because I think it's going to look like more of a challenge for him to be successful with the Dodgers this year, and they're going to give him some credit rather than it being a slam dunk.
Good manager. Both managers, all three managers in that National League West, the top three teams I think are really good. I think Troy Lavello's underrated, and I think you may see him in contention for that award this year as well. Yep. What else? What else is a big story? Real quick, just throw something out there. The biggest story you see of this year, outside of like who's winning, losing. What's going to be the big story?
Injuries. I mean, we've seen a crap ton of them already. Some of them might have been foreseeable. Guys pulling hamstrings like Fried just did in today's game, running to cover first base. It's the spring. They're not in shape. It's cold, blah, blah, blah. teams need to really put some emphasis in having these guys stretched out and ready to go. There's way too many injuries on some really important players that teams need to look at this a lot more and have some real specialists on the team, not people to fix it once it's happened, but to prevent it. I don't know if it's yoga and Pilates or stretching exercises or something, but these guys need to start looking at this.
That's a blatant push for your wife's Pilates class. I don't think that's necessary here. But
she teaches yoga too.
Oh, she does yoga. Okay, so it was a double push here. So well done. Send her contact information. We'll put it on the site. Here's private phone number. I'll put on the site for you if you like.
There you go. But, yeah, I mean, it's reared its head now, and it's going to keep rearing its head until something changes in the way these teams manage their health.
Well, how about letting pitchers actually pitch? How about that? Maybe that will help the pitcher's health. Big story for me is going to be the rules changes and the way it affects the way the game is played. Rules changes that didn't need to be made in my mind, and will affect the game in a lot of ways people don't expect. I can't even tell you what will happen, but we're going to see things. You've diametrically changed the game when you make the bases 4.5 inches closer together all of a sudden. So those bang plays at first base and home play, guess what? That changes the whole dimension of the game in my mind. People don't think about 4.5 inches. What's that matter?
It matters a lot.
Bang plays, you see. So again,
I think the biggest one actually is going to be the shift.
I think the shift is huge, and again, I hate it. I hate that I should be able to play my players wherever I want to play them, and you should have to hit the ball where I don't put my guys. Teach them how to play the game right.
I think that's one of the reasons I actually picked Sager to be the MVP. It's going to make a huge difference. And
I think
he was one of the most shifted players there was.
Yeah.
So,
but not smart enough. But not smart enough not to keep hitting the ball into the shift.
No.
I'm just shocked. Anyway. So there you have it, Drew. What else you got? Anything else you want to say before we wrap it up tonight? We had a great almost 2.5 hours here. We did a good job, I think.
Yeah, no, we pretty much covered everything. I mean, it's always the thing that was fun for me when I was doing the research and making all these notes was looking at the rookies. I really enjoy that and seeing who's coming up, who's going to make an impact, who could make an impact. I find that fun. And
there'll be at least one guy that we didn't even think about that will have an impact. It might not even be until late September. Comes up and has 50 at-bats and helps a team make the playoffs or win a World Series. That's why baseball's great, because as John Sterling says, you just never know what's going to happen from day to day.
And they're going to come up because of an injury. So there you go.
Absolutely. So there you have it, guys. There's the 2023 season in a nutshell. No reason to watch a game. It's just go to sleep till October, and we'll start talking about football.
And how good we were on this.
Thanks for joining me tonight, guys. Thanks for watching. Keith Engle for TGI Sports Talk with our 2023 Major League Baseball preview. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow morning with the Mad New Yorker. See if my head explodes. Have a great night.
Thanks.